Coming up on the Mobile Journalism Show.
I have a closet full of equipment, ranging from mixers to cables to, some 1-inch tapes and a variety of things. And it's been sitting there for several years because I can do what I need to do with my iPhone and my iPad.
So today's topic, professional level video editing on your iPhone or iPad with Terri Morgan from Luma Fusion.
Welcome to the Mobile Journalism Show. If you're a mobile journalist, marketer or creative who makes content on a mobile device or for mobile audiences, you're in the right place. Keeping you up to date with the fast-moving world of mobile, here's your host and mobile video specialist, Mark Egan.
So I'm here in the Exhibitors Hall at Mojofest with Terri Morgan from Luma Touch. And if you're not familiar with, or especially Luma Fusion, if you're editing on iPhone or an iPad, it's, we can safely say, the most powerful editor out there. But tell me a bit about your background. How did you get from what I understand was more traditional editing into editing on mobile devices? Yeah,
well, I've been editing for around 30 years. So I started out tape-to-tape editing in an online suite. And over the years, I started working for companies like Avid and Tektronix and Lightworks at the beginning of nonlinear editing to help develop products. I am now what you would say as a product designer and an editor equally. So when I met my business partner, Chris Damaris at Avid, and he was just one of the most fantastic developers I had ever worked with. And we had been developing products like Avid Studio for PC and Avid Studio for iPad for Avid. And through the process of big companies, you get laid off or you get moved to various companies, purchased, sold, bought, whatever. And we were, as a team, sold to Corel. And Avid Studio for iPad became Pinnacle Studio for iPad. And at that point, we were laid off. So Chris and I said, maybe we could continue developing Pinnacle Studio for Corel on a license. And we did that for 3 years, but also we were developing Luma Fusion, which is our baby. I mean, we love it. And all of my passion for editing, you'll be able to see in this product. I put everything I'd learned from all of these companies I'd worked at into this. And Chris is just the most brilliant developer I've ever met, as I said. And so together we were able to create something that I think is just pretty fantastic. It's fun to use, it's powerful, it does titling, color correction.
Look, you're not allowed to list all the features, otherwise we're going to be here for the next 25 minutes with all the features. You know what, I remember being at MojoCon and Chris had a kind of a version of what would eventually become Luma Fusion. And when he started to show me about the layers, I mean, I almost kissed the poor guy because, it was just a massive breakthrough from what was there before. But I mean, coming from your background, which was traditional editing, now often people from that background are quite antagonistic towards, phones, mobile journalism, they see it as like standards going down, all that kind of stuff. What made you think, instead of going and developing another piece of software for a desktop, that actually this was worth getting involved in?
Well, I have a closet full of equipment, ranging from mixers to cables to, some 1-inch tapes and a variety of things. And it's been sitting there for several years because I can do what I need to do with my iPhone and my iPad. And at one point I realized that without the need to master all that equipment, buy all that equipment, acquire it, all that stuff, and troubleshoot it every time it breaks, new people in the field don't have to conquer that, and they can now just focus on what we really want is storytelling, really good storytelling. And they can now put all that energy I put into all that equipment into just telling a great story. And that's what I'm all about now, is realizing we're finally at that place where we can just focus on what's important, and that's what I'm just so happy about that. So that's why I'm here.
Well, the trouble with audio is you can't see the passion in your eyes, but hopefully we can hear it in your voice. No, I mean, one of the other advantages, obviously, you can film on the same device, you can edit on the same device, or you can airdrop it from your phone onto a tablet. What kind of people are using Luma Fusion? I mean, you must have some idea of, is it journalists, is it content marketers, who's using it?
Well, we've had great support from journalists. I mean, we are so thankful to all the mobile journalists out there that have supported us. But we're also being used by YouTube artists, people that do tutorials, people that do music videos, experimental filmmakers like Vanessa Vox. I mean, she just does some amazing, beautiful creations that you would never guess were done on an iPad. So there's a variety of people that use, anybody that wants to tell a story or wants to make something, it's traditional editing on an iPad. So it just frees you from all the heaviness, both in terms of price, but also the weight and and the mobility, so that you can really tell your story the way you want to tell it. And you know what's so great about that as well is people that could never tell a story now can afford to tell a story. So we're going to hear from people all over the world that we wouldn't have heard from before, and we're going to hear firsthand from those people, and that's just unbelievable to me. I mean, it's fantastic.
The other thing I'm seeing more of is obviously people who are aware of all the mobile apps jumped on it pretty quickly, but I've seen more people shooting on some kind of mirrorless cameras or other cameras and then sending it to their iPad and editing that way. Now, talking about some desktops and mobile devices, do you see a day arriving? Is it inevitable that one day my laptop and my iPad will be running the same system? You won't have like Mac OS and iOS and everything. Is that inevitable?
I feel it is inevitable. I mean, this is the first trip, I have to admit, this is the first trip I've been on where I just said, I actually don't need my laptop. I don't need it for anything, really. So I left it at home, and just getting on the plane with my iPad and my iPhone, I just felt like, yes, this is the
liberated,
moment. Yeah. So I do think Apple will probably, however they do it, they'll merge somehow, or at least make those two things compatible. So,
and when you're working on something like this, I mean, I've got no idea about coding. It looks like impossibly complicated to me. What kind of a size team do you like? If I'm trying to envisage, how many people you need to get an app up to this level?
Well, Chris and I released this with just Chris and I, and then Andrew is our support and technical support and tester. So he was working half-time for us. So it was 2.5 people.
Wow.
But it took us 3 years, and that's 3 years with no income, from the app itself. I guess it depends on who your developer is and who what your focus is.
But I suppose most people would presume you had like 20 people somewhere, working on.
Right.
So yeah, that's just a small number of people working incredibly hard. Yeah. So that makes it even more incredible. Now, how far can this go, in the sense that you're kind of slightly limited by whatever Apple puts out there, but you must see the limitations getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, how could this ever get to the point where you have a whole edit suite and it's being powered off your iPad?
Yeah, I mean, some of the features we're working on right now that will come out soon is the ability to have external monitor of your preview, which means you could use this in a suite where you have wave vector scopes and all that hooked up, do your color correction all from here. I do think that there should be no limitation with this. It's more fun to use. It's faster. I mean, people come by and see 3 tracks of 4K scrubbing on my timeline and say, wait a minute, is that low res or something? Like, no, that's the real 4K scrubbing. And they'll say, well, even my Final Cut can't scrub that good for 3 tracks of 4K, So I don't see any real limitations, but it's just a matter of the time it takes to develop the features and solve the problems that people are looking to solve and such.
And obviously you're only on iOS. Would you consider, I know Android, there are lots of different devices, very difficult. Would you consider doing Android?
Yes, we will consider doing Android, and we're looking at the possibilities. One of the problems with Android so far is that the AV foundation that Apple has is there's nothing comparable on Android. So what Luma Touch needs to do is build that foundation, then build our own engine, and then build the app on top of it. So it's a pretty big challenge, but we're definitely looking into it.
And the other thing about actually as a business, we've got different apps and things represented here. Some are subscriptions, some are one-off payments, some are upsells. It's difficult, isn't it, to not annoy everybody with the way you price or watermark, whatever it is. But at the same time, it's costly to create something like this. How do you make that decision on, do you make it a subscription? Do you pay? What's been your thought process?
My thought process, I related to buying a waffle maker. So if
the natural thought process.
Yes, of course. I like waffles. So, if you go out and buy a waffle maker, you're happy to spend $60 on a really nice waffle maker. But if they were going to say, no, I'm going to charge you $5 a month to make waffles, and then you fail to make waffles on the second month, you would be like, oh my God, I wasted $5. That is so terrible. And that's the way editing is. You may not edit every week, you may not edit every month. So I feel like I don't want you to feel bad just because you spent that subscription money. Now, on the other hand, if you got waffle syrup of a different flavor every month sent to your house, that's a subscription. I'm happy to pay for that, So that's my view on subscriptions. It should be new content, new stuff you can get. And then we're trying to stick to that. We don't want to go down this subscription model.
Now, you come to something like Mojofest. You go to other events, other markets. How does this compare in the kind of people who come past? Do you enjoy it? What's your take on Mojofest?
The family environment here is amazing. I mean, all these people know each other, and they just seem to be so connected. It's my first year here, but I've been welcomed like an old friend by many people, and I'm just really pleasantly surprised at what a welcoming crew this is here. So
I'm not surprised you got a welcome, because you make a lot of people's jobs much, much easier with this. I mean, literally, the jump from obviously you had Pinnacle, which is great, but they're going to the multi-tracks and everything it can do. I always say to people when they say, well, why should I get Luma Fusion? I sort of say it's basically like Final Cut Pro on your mobile device. It's kind of, it's that level, and people are like, no, seriously, until I show them, this is what we're talking about. 2 last quick questions. When I do use some Final Cut Pro, there's all the kind of the plugins and the other kind of stuff that goes in. Is that possible? Is that something that you can open it up for people to create lots of things to tag onto that? Is that something that can happen?
That is a good question. I can't answer that. I just don't know the answer to that. I'm sure Chris would have a brilliant answer for it, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Just finally, obviously I can see you're passionate about video, passionate about editing. Are there any kind of instances or stories where you've known or heard about somebody using Luma Fusion in the real world, and you just thought, that's so cool that they're using it?
I do have an example, and it's happening right now. There's a guy, Angelo Ciaccio is his name, and he is doing something called the Ephemera Documentary Project. He is traveling to 30 places on Earth where the culture is disappearing, the environment is disappearing, whole societies are disappearing, and he's documenting that with his camera and editing on Luma Fusion and uploading the next time he gets to wireless. And he is going to some unbelievable places and getting the most beautiful footage. I am just stunned by what he's doing, and I just keep thinking, why isn't National Geographic picking him up? Because you got to see it. Look on YouTube for the Ephemera Project. Beautiful stuff, and it's just touching to see these cultures and these people living in places I wouldn't think anybody would live, but they're still out there living, in ice fields with dogs and a family in a hut. why are they there? But they are, and he's out there capturing that. And it's just bringing a new empathy to me and the other viewers of things I couldn't even have imagined are still happening and still out there. So that is my example of beauty right there. And then, of course, people like Philip Bromwell. Can't say enough about that. He's did some amazing stories. So.
Well, it's great to end on talking about content, because obviously at the end of the day, all the technology, the whole point is to break down barriers and facilitate content, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. But thank you very much for chatting to me. If people want to find out more or connect with you or any questions, where should they go?
Yeah, lumatouch.com. And, you can always email any of us. We all check our support email, support@luma-touch.com. We'll be back with you within a day. So.
And finally, again, congratulations on an amazing app.
Thank you so much, and thanks for interviewing me.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And we'd love it if you would leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. To get in touch with Mark, go to www.purplebridgemedia.com or tweet him at Mark Egan Video.